everyone for joining us. We have two guests today. We're going to have them introduce themselves. These are pastors. I've known them for a while. Men of God, just Pastor Shamar and Pastor Jelson. All right, how about this? How about you guys just give a quick introduction?
Yeah.
Let people know who you are, where you're pastoring, how long you've been pastoring for, how many kids you have, and just kind of how you got saved.
Okay.
So we'll start with you, Jelson.
All right, awesome. So, been pastoring now in the wonderful city of Oshawa for we're going to do 2 years this August. Okay, so this August we're going to be celebrating our 2nd year anniversary, so we're amped for that, we're excited for that. It's me, my wife, my 2 beautiful kids, Aiden and Aliana. It's a blast, it's fun. So how we got there, we just got saved and felt the call of God in our lives. We wanted to do something for God and reach people. We felt that burden. Being in the mother church here, it's always something that we were involved in, just actively in people's lives, every outreach, things like that. And so really, really, really fun way to live our lives. And so we decided to go forward in that and pioneer and reach people and things like that. Yeah, so I got saved. I was 19 years old, just a wreck, dealing with an identity crisis, really. Usually where I start my testimony is at the prime of my sin. But prior to that, I was a kid like everyone else. I was 6 years old once. I was 8 years old once. And I was a regular kid living at home with both parents. Loved soccer, regular things that kids like to do, Nicky Nine Doors, playing in the park, whatever, you name it. But something shifted in my life when my dad left. I was 16 years old. And before he left, I had some bad friends in the neighborhood that I kind of looked up to, but never really had the courage to follow them or do anything that they're doing because of that, that authoritative figure in my house, my dad. But when he left, all those boundaries kind of broke. And so now it's like I'm free to come home late at 1 a.m. I'm free to, chase the girls. I'm free to smoke. And so I just started being a mess, getting high, selling drugs and things like that, going in and out of jail. But then at the age of 19, I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was on house arrest for a few charges, and I'm walking to get my hair cut. And so this cruiser drives by me. I'm walking, wait for the bus, go to the barber shop, get my hair cut. Cruiser drives by me, decides to turn around, stops me, starts asking me questions, and finds out that I'm in house arrest. Long story short, I'm going to jail. Okay? So in the back of the cop car, in the cruiser, I hear a voice, and God is telling me if I keep living like this, I'm going to end up dead or in jail for a long time. And so that really began to really speak to me. And so I get to jail. I pick up a book, The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. I'm reading it, and it's telling me that Jesus has a purpose for my life, which is incredible for me because at this stage, I'm 19 years old, still in high school, okay?
Your 6th year in high school?
I think I graduated at 6.5 years.
Wow.
You're supposed to graduate at 4 years. Yeah, so I was really late. So I was still in high school, didn't have my license, didn't have any plans to continue education, had no purpose in my life at all, right? So I'm soaking in this book because there's nothing better to do in jail but to read. I'm soaking in this book, and it's just telling me that God can use my life, and I'm created for a purpose. And for some reason, I bought into all of that, right? It really spoke to me. Come out of jail now, and all of that goes away. I'm back to my freedom, back to my smoking or whatever. And then I remember being in my backyard, and the Holy Spirit just says, what about our plan? What about, what I spoke to you about? And then I was about to get high and smoke again, and I remember just throwing away the blunt or whatever, and just saying, I want to live for God. And from that day forward, God began to work some things. I met you, and then I started coming to the church and started growing. And that's where God has taken me from, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's really powerful. It's crazy that sometimes, God just has our number.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And when He has our number, that's just it, man. It just kind of reels us in, and just kind of captures our heart, and that's what the Holy Spirit does. Shamar, what about you? How did you get saved? Because I think the first time, okay, one of my memories of Shamar is, he was driving around with his girlfriend, his wife, and Alkeisha at the time. And he had a flat tire at Keelan Lawrence. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he even had a license. And
you still like that?
Still doesn't have his license. Keisha called me to help one of his friends. So I went over there, trying to be a good community neighbor, whatever you call it. And I just went over there to help him change his tires. And, I don't remember him saying thank you. I think he just kind of drove off and. I don't remember saying thank you. Just one of those things just kept going, and so I guess he had plans that night. But how did you get saved?
Oh my goodness! So fast forward, all those things happening. One of the things that led to me getting saved is that when you witnessed to Kijo and Kijo got saved, he would always come and preach to me, and whenever he would preach to me, it's like. Yes, I'll get convicted, I want to go, but then I'll look at his life and I'm like, bro, you're doing the same thing as me. So I'm like, I'm good then. I'm good. So I continued to do what I was doing. I tried coming to church when I was 14. I prayed, but never came back after that. And then about 4 years, I just got worse and worse in my sin. And similar, dabbling in different things, but continued playing basketball, and when I played basketball, I went overseas to go play basketball in North Carolina. So when I went over there, I got hurt, I came back to Canada, and when I came back to Canada, that time where Kijo and I were separated is when Kijo got serious for God. So that when I came back now, when he's preaching to me, it's coming from a different angle now. It's coming from a person that's truly doing what they were saying. So it was more receptive, and he invited me to a Bible study. When I went to the Bible study, I wasn't planning on to. I really went just because he asked me to come, so just to get him off my back. And when I went there, when everything was done, one of the guys, I'm not going to say his name because he'll feel too nice after, one of the guys asked me, do you want to pray? And I said, yeah, I'm going to pray. And when I prayed, I'll be honest, everything that night, I was doing it just to get them off my back. But when I prayed that prayer, something shifted. And on my way home, I was living at my girl's house at that time. And on my way home, I called her. I said, listen, pack my bags, I'm leaving. And she's like crying, like, what's going on? And I said, I want to serve God, and we can't do it together because I know what's going to end up happening. So all that happens, and I end up going to church, went to a concert, praying again. And ever since that day, I've been going faithfully. 2 or 3 years after all that happened and I was saved, that's when I felt the call of God on my life to pastor. I tried to dodge it at first because I knew the commitment that I was stepping into, but obviously you can't shake God for too long. And after being out now, we've been out for 2 years. Last week we just celebrated 2 years anniversary under quarantine on Zoom. So, but it's been good. It's been good. God has been helping us. Church is growing and seeing good things happening.
Very good. So, as pastors, especially young pastors, young black men, one of the things that people like to talk about, like to ask is, how did you get married, or where did you find your spouse? And especially, girls love to ask this question. Where did you find your spouse?
Right.
I don't know, obviously church, or they think you probably just pick one up on the curb or something like that, right? So they want us, but how old were you when you got married, Jelson?
So my situation was a bit sticky and different. What happened was I came to church, kind of like what Shamar was saying. I came to church in a relationship. So we were 19 years old, came to church, got saved, but we were dating from we were 16. So we were together for about 3 years. And so we came to church, and, the Holy Spirit, kind of like what you're mentioning, is dealing with us, changing us. And so we started developing our own personal convictions, not to do certain things. And then, boom, out of nowhere, we find out she's pregnant. And so we're expecting a child. And so, we loved each other. We spoke about being together for the rest of our lives before. And so here we're in this situation. We're like, what's the best thing to do that's going to say we love each other and that's going to say we love God? And that's to get married. And so we did that, and that's kind of how I found my wife.
Okay, and how old were you when Rhonda was pregnant and you guys got married?
19. So we come to church at 19 around the fall, September time, and then we get married in November. Wow. 3 months after.
And you, Shamar?
It's funny because Justin and our story is almost identical, just in every aspect. But the thing, that girl that I called and I said that I was done. So pretty much what happened is that when I went to the house and I told her, and I was packing up my bags and my brother's coming for me and all that stuff, I said to her, the only way I can ever be with you is if you come to church and you get married. I'll be honest, when I said it, I didn't think she was going to come. But she came to church, she was there, and obviously she was there for me. So what happened is that in the early stages, she was more of a distraction to me rather than us, that perfect story.
Right.
So I think it was about 3 months in, we ended up falling, and when we fell, she got pregnant at the time, but I didn't know. So 3 months later, actually no, a month later, or wherever, I think it was about a month and a half later, I went to conference. And I was at conference, and that's when I was like, listen, don't ever call my phone or talk to me again.
Yeah, that conference fire.
That zeal from conference is like, don't call me, don't text me. So I leave the conference now and I'm on fire. I'm like, I'm going back and serving God. This is it. As soon as I get back, I don't even think a full 24 hours went by. When she came back, she must have went to the doctor because she wasn't feeling sick, and she called me. And I answered, I'm like, I thought I told you don't call me, whatever. I'm railing on the phone. And as she's like, I have to tell you something. I'm not gonna lie, as soon as she said that, my heart dropped. My heart dropped. And she's like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, you're lying.
Oh, man.
She's like, no, I'm serious. I went to do the test, and I said, I'm not. Nah, you're lying. I hung up the phone on her. I was staying at the men's home at that time, so I called Rex. I called Keija in the room. I'm not gonna lie, I broke down crying. I'm like, I can't deal with this right now. And after, so I end up calling her back, and she told me like she's serious. I got her to do another test to prove it to me. And then after that, I went to Pastor, and I was like, Pastor, I messed up, and this is the situation. He asked me what I want to do. And I said, hey, listen, I messed up, so I need to make it work. If I leave her to raise the baby on her own, I don't like that idea because I never want to be that type of father. And if we try to co-parent, not being together, we're probably going to end up falling again because we're in communication a lot. So I said the only wise choice I thought at the time was for us to get married. And we got married, we got married a month later. I remember I bought a $200 ring, I bought her a $400 ring, and she was rocking that ring for 7 years.
Like it was 4,000.
And we did it. A month later we got married. I was 19 years old with a baby on the way. I had no idea how it was going to work out, but we genuinely repented, got our hearts right, and God helped us.
It was crazy because I was in an Instagram live chat this morning, and I was just saying that it's when I got saved, I knew that I was going to college, and I knew that that was it in terms of education. I finished high school, that was it, man. And I didn't know what God wanted for my life, but I just knew I wasn't going to college. And I didn't know what field to get into in terms of career, in terms of job. And that was a very hard time for me, transitioning from just, a teenager, just being a young adult to becoming an adult. And I just said that it's so interesting how God he just makes a way for all of this. You getting saved and find out your girlfriend's pregnant, same thing with you at 19 years old, no job, no car, no nothing. Like, you can't even afford your own rent, but you're having a family. And it's just so amazing that when we trust God, He just always finds a way. And one of the things for me is what I've learned over the years is when I don't know what to do, don't know where to turn, if I just trust Him, if I'm just faithful to Him, committed to Him, He will direct my steps. He will lead me, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it's awesome just how God does that. Just really, it's a powerful testimony, and it's an encouragement to a lot of people who get lost in the transition of life, who get they don't know what to do, they don't know where to turn. And no doubt you guys are pastors, and people come to you with their issues, and you just say trust God, trust God. But they can't see, they can't see how God's going to work this out. I'm sure that you guys are in that situation where you're able to see how God was going to work it out. So, like, what were some of the challenges for you guys when you guys found out that you're so young, girlfriend's pregnant, now you're married, and no financial stability, no nothing? What were some of the challenges?
For me, when that all happened, I was, I don't remember where I was working, but at that point I knew that I could never sleep in again. Because when you have no responsibility, it's so easy to just say, I'm not going to work today. But my mind had to change completely to know that, okay, I'm not only providing for myself, but I'm providing for a family now. And one of the things that really helped is that when I stepped into the church, there's a lot of, I guess you could call role models. There's men of God that were there. They had their families. They're working. So I did have something that I can look up to in that sense. So I had something where I said, okay, that's the role model. This is where I need to move forward. And then I just went on my grind and just working day in, day out. I was going from job to job trying to find myself because I'm 19.
Right.
So and the whole process of me trying to take care of someone else, I'm in the same process trying to find myself. So it was a bumpy road, a bumpy drive, but it worked out because I did have people there that I can look to, people that I can talk to, and obviously God's grace upon my life as well. So it was rough, but we were able to navigate through it.
Right.
Yeah. Day-to-day struggles, where are we going to get milk from for the baby? When are we finally going to get our own place? When are we finally going to get a car and stop pushing a stroller on Jane Street on the Jane bus? You know what I mean? We look like everybody else in the ghetto. And so, yeah, very similar to what Shamar was saying. I just had to man up, right? I just had to rise up. And it was a challenge. I wasn't perfect. I remember having jobs, waking up with a little itch on my throat, calling in, hey, I'm not coming in today. I'm not feeling well. But there was a process of manning up, right? And I remember you preaching some sermons for some of the men that really helped me over the years on men having dominion and taking dominion and just maturing and rising up. Those things really helped me. And yeah, just finding myself, working different jobs. And now we're here, and God has provided the way. I just want to touch on what you were saying earlier, that God finds a way for His people. And I think the struggle with a lot of people is they want to stay focused on how is God going to find a way, instead of being focused on what God tells us for us to receive His blessings. And that's obedience. That's really us just saying, you know what, yes, God, I'm going to obey you. And when we say, yes, God, I'm going to obey you, He always makes a way for His people, right? So people tend to focus on the wrong things.
As of recent, I've been, thinking about the story in Genesis that when the children of Israel were leaving Egypt, and the Bible says that God opened the Egyptians' hearts so they would give the children of Israel their wealth as they're leaving Egypt. Yeah. And we don't really think about that, but that's a miracle. That's very, very powerful. Here they're in slavery, and they're leaving out of slavery, leaving out of bondage, and God opened the Egyptians' heart and gave them their wealth, and they left wealthy. And that's what God does for His people. You know what I mean? We don't, like I said, we don't know what to do, where to go, but He always directs us. He always provides for us. Now, obviously, that's not an excuse. Some people are thinking, man, okay, that's great. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to go to college. No, go to school, go to college, get your education. Don't be a bum like us. But the takeaway from this is always trust God, no matter what situation that you find yourself in. You know what I'm saying? I think that's very important. Being married so young, being in the ministry, having kids at a very young age. So. How did you balance all of that? Marriage, ministry, children, work. How did you balance all of that?
Tough, very tough. It's been a battle for many, many, many years. first thing I can say is if you keep Jesus at the center of all those areas in your life, it would help. So keep Jesus at the center of how you're loving your wife. Keep him at the center of your work decisions, right? Your ministry decisions. If you're going to raise your children in the ways that he wants you to raise your children, you keep him at the center, and that will help you.
Right.
You allow the Spirit of God to lead you in those little decisions. I think people forget like how important it is. The little things, the little decisions that we make in Christianity, like, okay, should I work this job that's going to keep me away from church? Mm-hmm. Small decisions. When you make those little decisions and you make the right ones after time and time and time and time and time again, eventually it will help you to balance those things. It will help you to balance family, work, children, and things like that. Another thing is, my wife, when she got saved, she loved to be around church. She loved to be involved in ministry,
right.
And so there was never that tension. You know what I mean? And that's why it's very important for you to marry someone that has the same conviction as you, right? It wasn't that we both wanted the same things, and then we would also involve our children in the kingdom of God. We didn't isolate our children. We brought them to outreaches with us. We brought them places with us, and so that way they're always involved. My kids now, they talk about making Christian rap songs and things like that because they've seen me on stage over the years, right? So they love things like that, and so when the whole family is engaged and the kingdom of God is prioritized, it creates that balance, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
I wish I could say it was as easy when we first started.
Tough, man. Tough.
I'd say the first 3 to 5 years of marriage was rough. But especially the first year, because at the time I was the only one married in church in my age group. So I'm married now, and at this time Josiah is born, and all the men are out there street preaching. Everyone's going to late fellowships, men's home, all that stuff, and then I'm married, so I have to go home. Yeah. But I didn't want to go home. So I'll be honest, that first year I wasn't going home. That first year I wasn't going home. And I would know when I get home there's gonna be a war in the house, but I'm like, hey, listen, I know there's gonna be a war, so I'm gonna have fun. And I was doing that, and I'll be honest, it wasn't good. It wasn't the right thing to do. So that brought a lot of friction in the marriage in the early stages. But obviously, the longer I got married, I began to understand that, and then working things out. Both myself and Keisha came from broken homes. Both of us never had a father figure, so we had to work out a lot of things within the marriage at the early stages. But by the grace of God, we got through it. And when we went out now, and as our kids got older, same thing with Justice saying, our kids are involved in everything. Our kids go to outreach, our kids are at every event, and they're involved in everything that happens. When we first got sent out, I got Josiah, who was I think about 7 at the time, 7 or 8, to do overheads to make him feel important, to feel like he's a part of what we're doing and it's not just mommy and daddy. But as everything progresses, our marriages continue to get better and better because you learn your spouse more, you learn things, and we just began to grow within our marriage. And obviously there is no perfect marriage, but you learn your spouse, and you learn how to work out the issues instead of staying out late at night again and avoiding certain things. But we definitely grew in our marriage, and marriage is a very, very, very good thing. We know that most of us without our spouse, we won't be doing what we're doing now. So it helps. And I always, when people ask me about marriage, I say marriage can be a roller coaster. So learn how to ride the highs and learn how to get through the lows, and always get better in your marriage. If you begin to fall back, it's you're headed in the wrong direction. Continue to grow in your marriage. Continue to get better as an individual with your spouse. So marriage is a blessing. Myers-Briggs
helped us all.
It's funny, it's because a lot of people say that the first year was very tough. And I think my first year was tough. I mean, I got married at 27. So you guys were at 19, which is, I mean, I couldn't imagine myself being married at 19. I probably would have killed myself. But I got married at 27. But the first thing I realized when I got married is how selfish I was. But in the moment, you're not thinking that you're selfish.
Right.
In the moment, you're just thinking, I'm being who I am.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're married now, but you still want to go play basketball whenever you want. You just, answer your wife, hey, where you going? What time you coming home? And you're like, you're not my mom.
Yeah.
Well, hey, my mom hasn't asked me that many, many years. And all of a sudden, now you live with someone who's asking you, hey, where you going? What time are you coming home? When are you going to be back?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They want to spend time with you, but you're like, just chill. You can't spend time by yourself. And so, it was just like a very, very selfish thought. I'm amazed how much I've grown, because like you guys said, it's, young men, especially black men, I know the stereotype is out there, but we don't have very good role models when it comes to relationship. I remember I told my brother I was getting married, and he goes, marriage? What's that? And so that's...
It's not in his vocabulary.
Yeah, that's not, you know what I'm saying? It's just not something they even talk about or say, and so, but it is, what it taught me though, that it takes a real man, right? To step into marriage. It takes a real man to really sacrifice and commit yourself to a woman and to lay down your life for her and love her like Christ loved the church. And I've been married for almost 13 years now, and I'll tell you something, man. It's just it's grown so much. I enjoy spending time with my wife. It's almost like it's getting better and better and better and better. I'm not saying that for brownie points, but it really is. I'm really starting to enjoy my marriage. I'm really starting to, it's like you fall in love with your wife again, because it's not always easy. You know what I'm saying? It's not always easy. And everyone is like, oh, it's so easy. And they're liars, man. They're liars, man. It's, there's times, man, you have arguments and you think to yourself, you don't say it, but, I don't know if I'm going to make it, man.
How much times I said
I don't know if I'm going to make it, man. This is, oh my god.
Ready to run away.
Yeah. It's like I won't have a divorce now. I'll just run away, man. They can't find me. Like someone kidnapped me and I'm gone, like another country, not in the same country. That's, and I think that's why it takes a real man to really get married and to even when things get really tough and really hard, you say, you know what, I made a covenant to this woman. I'm going to love her. I'm going to serve God. We're going to serve together no matter how hard things get. We're going to get through this together, And so I've always encouraged, so some guys, Pastor, I want to get married. That's great, but a lot of times the guys don't know what they're in for.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And people, marriage is a blessing, and people need to get married. Marriage is it's like it does something for society, for community when people see people in marriage, man. But people also have to know that it's challenging, it's tough. You got to fight certain battles, but also it gets better.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I tell people: it gets better. It gets better. Even when my wife used to be, you're so busy, I used to always tell her, it's just a season. Don't worry, we'll get through this season.
Right.
One day we'll be old and we'll be taking vacation on the beach. Now we have a COVID season, so I'm home all the time.
That's
so
right.
now we're just enjoying.
It came to pass. In this order before it came to pass.
Exactly. But marriage, it's a great thing. And you got to man up if you want to be a good husband. You got to grow in that.